We didn't know back then what it would become. A single trip, a suitcase, a map that felt bigger than our lives. We thought we were just going somewhere new. But somewhere along the way, the world began to open. In a Paris park, I saw a man on a bench eating cotton candy, and I wanted some. From my barely remembered high school French, I tried to ask him where he got it and its name in French. He pointed and said, "Barba papa." "Barba papa?" He laughed and said, "Oui, barba papa." And for the first time in my life, I wanted something and found it in another language. And somewhere along the way, it wasn't just about where we were going, but who we were becoming when we were there together. We didn't begin as a perfect match. When we married, we were almost strangers, still becoming who we would be, raised in different worlds, shaped by different lives, and somehow we grew in the same direction. We became best friends, not because everything was easy, but because we wanted the same things for ourselves, for our family, for our life. And along the way, we learned something even more surprising. We not only shared the same job, in the same office, we traveled the same way too. The same curiosity, the same sense of adventure, the same willingness to simply go. And over time, what began as two very different people became something else entirely. Not the same person, but two halves that somehow made a whole. And then there was the joy. Not just the big moments, though there were many of those, but the small ones, the unexpected ones. The laughter that showed up when we needed it most. The moments that weren't planned, but became the ones we remembered. Somewhere along the way, we realized that joy doesn't come from where you go. It comes from who you share it with. Then, without even noticing when it happened, our joy grew. It became family, shared moments, pride, laughter, and love. We watched them grow and found ourselves growing right along with them. And so we laughed a lot at ourselves, with each other. We filled our lives with the things we love, the things that made us us. And along the way, we found our people. Ones who laughed with us, cheered for us, and somehow turned a simple game into something we never wanted to miss. We played, not because we had time, but because we chose to make time. We said yes to adventure, to laughter, and still, we never lost that spark, that willingness to simply go, to try, to laugh, to say, why not? Because somewhere in all of it, we became something else entirely. And along the way, our hearts made room. The people we love, the moments we hold on to, and even the little pause that made a house feel like home. And in the end, it was never really about the places. It was about this, all of this laughter, this life, these people, these loves. This is our joy. More often than not, we said yes, even when we weren't quite sure what we were saying yes to. We learned to trust, but not blindly, because sometimes the map disappears, the plan falls apart, and you have to figure it out as you go. We learn that fear isn't always a warning. Sometimes it's an invitation, and the things that scared us most became the moments we remembered most and the ones we were most proud of. We learned that we were more capable than we ever imagined. Even when we didn't speak the language or didn't know the way, we found a way through. And we learned something else that surprised us. Again and again, people were eager to show kindness, to offer help when we needed it most. So we said yes to trying something new, to stepping outside the familiar, to moments we never would have planned, but never would have wanted to miss. And somehow, the world became bigger and smaller at the same time. And then, the world opened up. Not just places on a map, but moments we stepped into. Places we had only imagined, and others we had never even dreamed of. Different languages, different lives, and yet, something familiar everywhere. We saw beauty in ways we didn't expect, and in places we never thought to look. There was wonder and history and lives unfolding all around us. And not everything was what we expected, but wherever we went, we were still us. Still curious, still learning, still finding our way. And slowly, the world stopped feeling so big and started feeling connected. And somehow, it began to feel like home. Sometimes, it came down to a single moment. In Amman, after days in a hotel room, we finally stepped outside and said yes to a stranger with no cab. We weren't quite sure what we were saying yes to, but we said it anyway. And it turned out to be one of our better decisions. He wasn't a cab driver, it was his own car, and before long he had shown us the city, shared his story, and reminded us that kindness needs no translation. And somewhere along the way, we understood something more. That saying yes opens doors you never even knew were there. And then there were the places that stayed with us, long after we had gone. Places where stories weren't told in words, but in silence. And places with a scale of loss was almost impossible to understand, where ordinary people had once walked and never came back. And sometimes it wasn't history at all. It was right in front of us. Lives lived with so little. And some places where the story is still being written. We saw great beauty, but also great truth. In China, there were elderly women lying on sidewalks while the world walked past them. No longer even begging, just lying there, waiting to die. I didn't take a picture. It felt wrong, but I've never forgotten it, because sometimes the moments that stay with you are the ones you don't capture. We saw daily life, in many places, moving through barriers we could barely comprehend. And we began to understand, not just where we had been, but what people endure, and why they leave everything behind in search of something better. But sometimes, we saw something even more powerful, the possibility that true enemies can become something more, that understanding can outlive conflict, and because of all we had seen, we now carry that understanding with us, everywhere.
You've always been American, I wish you could see what it's like to cross an ocean, chasing what could be. One day you're tied to yesterday, to names carved in old stone, and suddenly you wake up here, and somehow you belong. In the blink of an eye, it all turns around, from a foreigner's road to American ground. Got a suitcase full of memories and a heart ready to try, from distant shores to open plains, under freedom's sky. A whisper turns into a voice, a stranger to a son, in a land of many stories, I'm becoming one. Harbor lights were shining bright on a cold and restless night. City rising up ahead like a promise in the sky. I left behind the life I knew, every road I'd ever here and finally be called no longer just someone passing through. I found my place in red, white, and blue. Got a suitcase full of memories and a heart ready to try. From distant shores to open plains, under freedom's sky, a whisper turns into a voice, a stranger to a son. In a land of many stories, I'm becoming one. One foot in the old world, one foot in the new, carrying the past with me in everything I do. I'm the bridge between the two, where the broken roads have run. Not just where I came from, but who I've become. Still a suitcase full of memories, but now I'm standing strong. From a million yesterdays to where